Are you ready to branch out and make your very own shirts with your Cricut? Hi y'all, welcome to Daily Dose of DIY. My name is Chris and today is a very beginner-friendly tutorial. We are going to go through the steps of using iron-on vinyl, which is also known as heat transfer vinyl or HTV for short, to make custom shirts. Now there's all sorts of questions when it comes to using iron-on vinyl with shirts, like do you need a transfer tape? How do you know which side's up? I have a super embarrassing story to tell you on the first time I made a shirt. We're going to answer all those questions and more. Plus I have this free design that you can use, and I have a free time and temperature guide for you so you know how long and what temperature to press your vinyl. We're going to get into all of that. First, let's take a look at the supplies you're going to need to make your very own shirts. Okay, for this craft you will need a shirt. I am using Bella Canvas, one of my favorite brands, and Shirt Space is one of my favorite places to get it. They have the best selection of colors, prices. If you are going to make shirts to sell, they offer bulk discounts and their shipping is super extremely fast. I'm also using 2 colors of heat transfer vinyl, so we're going to show you how to layer on this, and you do not need a transfer sheet to transfer heat transfer vinyl. It comes with its own transfer sheet. It's also called a carrier sheet. So one side of this vinyl is the carrier sheet and the other side is the vinyl, and when we get to cutting it, I will show you how to know which side is which. You're also going to need a heat press. I'm using the Cricut Easy Press, or you can use a heat press machine. And with an Easy Press, I have my heat press mat down here. It's generally not recommended to use irons for shirts, just because your shirt will not last as long as if you use a heat press. Irons just don't get hot enough to get a good adhesion. But if you're in a pinch and you just need a shirt to wear to an event, go ahead and use your iron. You'll also need weeding tools. I have both a regular weeding tool and my favorite weeding pen, so you'll need some way to weed your vinyl. I am using my Cricut Maker to cut the heat transfer vinyl. This will also work on a Cricut Explorer, any brand maker, any brand Explorer, and we use just the regular fine blade that it comes with. And you'll need your green standard grip cut mat. Next, you'll want to grab my free time and temp chart and the SVG file I'm using for this design. Check the description for the link to this page. When you get here, you just want to click on Get My Free SVGs, and then you're going to fill in your first name and email address, and we will email you right away the link and the password to our library. Once you get that link, go ahead and enter in the password. And that gets you into our free library. You're free to use any of the SVGs or cheat sheets here that you find. For the time and temp, you'll click here for the cheat sheets and guides, and it's the first one right here. Click the download button and the download will automatically happen. And then you can backspace for the SVG. Here's all our SVG files. You're free to use any of them. They are in alphabetical order, so you'll find Grit and Grace under G. And you can click to download the SVG, and again the download will automatically happen. Once you have your SVG design, come on into Cricut Design Space. Once it's open, click on Canvas, and then we're going to click Upload and Upload Image, and then go to your Downloads folder and find that SVG file. Now it will come in zipped, so if you're on a Windows computer, you'll need to right click and click Extract. On a Mac, you can just double click and that will open the zipped folder. You can't upload a zip folder to Design Space. You need to download the .svg. So once you have your .svg, just drag and drop it in and then click Continue. On the next page, click Upload. So once the design is in Design Space, you want to check the size. This is sized at 10.87 inches. Now generally for shirts, the smaller, like if you're a size small, you might want to go down to 8 or 9 inches. 10 inches is about the base that will fit any shirt, But again, if you're small, you might want to go down an inch or two. If you wear a larger shirt, you can go up to 11.5 inches, which is the widest Cricut cuts. I'm going to go ahead and leave it this size for the shirt I'm making. And I'm going to give you a tip. One thing a lot of Cricut crafters forget to do, and I still forget to do after 8 or 10 years. From here, when you click the Make It button and we go to the matte screen, for heat transfer vinyl, you have to mirror the matte. And on Cricut, you have to hit mirror on every matte. So once you remember, it's not too bad to go down. And then, of course, it's not scrolling down to matte 2. There we go. And click mirror on. Super easy to forget. For some reason, my brain, and if you have a creative brain like I do, you might be able to remember this better. But also, instead of having to mirror every mat, you can do it at once in Cricut Design Space by going to your top and click flip and then flip horizontal, and that it mirrors all of your colors at once, and you don't have to worry about mirroring each separate mat. So I'm going to mirror that way, and from there we're going to click the Make It button. This next screen just shows you how everything will look on your mat, so you want to make sure it looks okay. And another common mistake is once you get to the end of your mats is just clicking continue. Well, Cricut's going to cut the mat that you last selected, and you're probably going to load thinking mat 1 is going to cut, and that's not the case. So make sure you go back up and select mat 1 after you're done checking your mats, and then click the continue button. Now, if you have an Explore Air or any of the machines with a dial, you can set your dial to iron on vinyl. The rest of the machines will have a menu of the different materials you can cut, so you want to click the Browse All Materials button. I'm just going to search iron, and that will bring up all the iron on. General iron on, like we're using today, I just cut under everyday iron on, no matter what the brand is. They're all pretty much the same thickness, and this works well. So once you select that, you can go ahead and click done, and now we're ready to load up our mat. So I have my green cut mat here ready to load, and my heat transfer vinyl. My first, actually, instead of cutting black, I'm cutting white. And as I mentioned before, the carrier sheet is on the vinyl. So one of the sides is a carrier sheet and the other side is a vinyl. The carrier sheet is your shiny, glossy side, but sometimes it's really hard to tell. And embarrassing story, the very first shirt I made, I put the wrong side up and it was a disaster. So my little trick to know which side that you put up on the Cricut cut mat is to grab a weeding tool and just poke at a corner. And if you're on the carrier sheet side, like we are now, it will not poke through. Like, unless you're stabbing and ready to gouge your finger, it's not gonna poke through that carrier sheet. But if we flip it over and start to poke, because now we're on the vinyl side, you will get vinyl and it will start to pull up the vinyl, and it will poke through the vinyl, and you can even pull the vinyl off the carrier sheet if you wanted, but we don't want to do that. So this is our vinyl side, and it is up, and we are going to line it up on the top corner here, so it goes nice and square on our Cricut cut mat. And then I smooth it down with my hands, make sure it is good and stuck. I'm going to open up my Cricut machine, and then you place the mat underneath these little tabs. There's tabs on either side. Let's slide my machine over here. And you can see our load button is flashing, waiting for us to load it. So I'm going to go ahead and load the mat. Once the mat is loaded, the C will start flashing, which is our go button. So I'm going to press that, and then Cricut automatically will cut our design for us. So once Cricut has finished cutting, you hit that flashing arrow button again, and it will give you your mat back. And I always recommend flipping your mat over and removing your mat from the vinyl. It will help keep it from curling up. It's especially important with paper projects. And then you simply load your next color onto the mat. So let's get this one smoothed down. insert it back into your Cricut, hit that load mat button and then the go button, and it will cut this color for us. While that's cutting, I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. It's probably hard to see on camera, but if you hold it at an angle to the light, you can see the cut lines. And if I take this bottom piece off, I can throw it in my scrap pile and use it for another project. Then to weed, we're going to take our weeding tool or our weeding pen. This one's done already, so I'm going to go ahead and unload him and just set him at the top of the Cricut until we need him. Poke that corner again, like I showed you before, and pull up, and your vinyl will come away from the carrier sheet. And then you just simply separate the two. Some of it will probably break, that's fine. It won't hurt the cutout, the design you cut out. This is just all the scrap vinyl we need to get rid of. Once you get most of it off, you can go back with your weeding tool and grab those pieces, little pieces that broke off, and the centers of your letters. Once you're done weeding, I also recommend flipping it over and looking at it from the other side, because it never fails. I usually forget a center of the letter, and it's just easier to see if you're looking at it the right way. Okay, now that our design is weeded, it is time to heat press. So I'm going to turn my heat press on. The temperature is set at 305 degrees. We're going to do a time of 15. First, we're going to do 10 seconds, and then we'll do 15 seconds. Now the time and temp is going to be dependent upon the type of vinyl you're using and what you're pressing it on, which is why I have that free time and temp guide you need to go grab. If you pick a different brand from Cricut, the brand vinyl you use should tell you the temperature they recommend pressing it at, and Caesar Easy Weed is 305 degrees. While this is preheating, I'm going to fold my shirt in half, and that's going to help get us a center line. Okay, my Easy Press is preheated, so I'm just going to cover my shirt with a piece of parchment paper to protect it, and we're going to pre-press our shirt. You need to pre-warm your garment. 1, it's going to remove the wrinkles. 2, it helps remove some moisture. And 3, it just gets it nice and warm and ready for heat transfer vinyl to apply to. Now the reason I folded it in half is because we now just pressed a crease in our shirt, and now when we unfold it, we have a center line so we can center our design on it. You also have the tag to go by as well. So I'm positioning my mat underneath it. Might be hard to see on camera, but I can still see my center fold line. And I'm just making sure the top shoulders are squared up. I usually put the collar right at the tip of the mat. I don't think I'm quite centered though, so let me get my mat centered under there. So I still have my center line right there, and we're going to add the big part of the design, which is Grit and Grace. Now you want to put this about 2 inches down from the bottom of your collar. So you can either eyeball it, or if you have a tape measure handy, you can use that as well. So right there is a good area. This is a pretty easy design to know where the center is, but if you want to know where the center of your design is, fold it in half backwards and just crease the carrier sheet. And then you line up the crease of your carrier sheet with the crease that's in your shirt. And it looks like I was just a hair off. Not a bad job of eyeballing it. So I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. And I'm going to make sure we're still about 2 inches off the collar, which we are. Smooth everything down. Make sure there's no wrinkles in your shirt, and that your mat is positioned all the way underneath it. Now I'm going to cover it with a parchment paper again to protect both the shirt and the vinyl. And we're going to put our Easy Press over it and press with firm pressure. I'm going to turn the timer on so we get 10 seconds. After your timer goes off, place your Easy Press back on the base, and then you can remove your parchment paper. There's also something called a hot peel, a warm peel, and a cool peel. So your vinyl, it depends on the vinyl type, whether you peel this carrier sheet off while it's hot, so basically right away, you wait till it cools down a little bit, or you wait until it's completely cool to the touch. Caesar is a warm peel in most cases, so we're letting it cool down a little bit, and then I'm just going to peel a little bit back and make sure the vinyl stuck, which it did. If your vinyl happens to come up, just lay your carrier sheet right back down and repress it for a few more seconds. We're going to go ahead and remove this. Again, just go slowly. I always worry about the edges because the mat is there. And yep, here's one of those spots. That T right there did not adhere. So I'm going to slide him over a little bit, put my parchment paper back on, and just repress that spot for a few seconds. Now at this point, since we're adding another color, it doesn't have to be like perfectly adhered, but we want to make sure it stays down when we pull this carrier sheet off. And now it is, which is good. There's a spot on this G. That's weird to me because it's right in the middle. So my Easy Press might have a cool spot, but I can see where it's not laid down. So I'm going to put a different part of my Easy Press over there and give it a press on this side for a few seconds. Again, if you ever have that issue, just lay your carrier sheet back down and repress so it will adhere. And then after it cools down a bit, remove that carrier sheet and see if it's stuck this time, which looks like we're doing good. It's all stuck well. Now we have our second word and our second color we want to add, and we don't have to worry about getting it right the first time. You can lay this down and peel it back up. The carrier sheet's not all that sticky. It's sticky enough to grab it, but you can get it back off. So you want to line up your next color. Get everything nice and flat. Once you have it down, you definitely need to cover with parchment paper this time because this vinyl, our grit and grease is exposed. So if you don't cover it up, it's going to melt and stick to your heat press, and we certainly don't want that. Press again for 10 seconds. Give it a second to cool. Oh, I love these colors together. I can't wait to wear this shirt. And then peel back your carrier sheet. Now that the carrier sheet's off, when you pull off the carrier sheet, it pulls up the vinyl too. I can see a little spot here. I definitely must have a cold spot on my heat press. I always press it another time with the parchment paper covering it. And then I'm going to do each side, like this side for 10 seconds and then that side for 10 seconds, and just make sure that it's good and stuck. If you're using an Easy Press, you also want to pick it up and move it and not slide it because that could make your vinyl crinkle. So there is our two colored shirt. It's looking gorgeous. Some people also press from the back just to make double shirt. So if you wanted to do that, this time you would put your parchment paper over your heat mat so that vinyl doesn't stick to your heat mat. And then you can flip your shirt over. Make sure our design is on the mat and press it. And then this time it doesn't matter really if you move it because the vinyl's on the other side, but press it for just 3 to 5 seconds. And there you have it, your very own vinyl shirt that you made. Super simple and easy once you know the tips and tricks. Now, to care for this shirt, you don't want to wash it or dry it for the first 24 hours. Let that vinyl cure to the shirt. And then I always flip them inside out and wash them. You can tumble dry low. They will last for a long time. If you want them to last even longer, hang it up to dry. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you learned a thing or two. Be sure to like and subscribe for more fun Cricut crafts and tutorials and to see the rest of our series on vinyl shirts. We're going to do glitter heat transfer vinyl next.